David Moyes has spent the last 4 months pretty much saying, I'll deal with the contract at the end of the season. I don't want anything to distract me from finishing as high as I can, from getting West Ham to European football. All I'm thinking about is the next game. That's been the mantra. Well, now we're there. Mission accomplished. Well done. So now it is contract time. And I don't believe that suddenly they're going to hurriedly sign a contract. No, this would have been in preparation. Because whilst David Moyes probably hasn't been able to sit down and go through the fine detail, he's been on the training pitch, he's been heavily involved, scouting, all that stuff we know. That doesn't mean his representative or his agent, or whoever it might be, hasn't sat down with David Sullivan. I say sat down, whatever, Zoom call, they probably all do it like that now, and said, OK, Moyes wants A, B and C. Yes, the final last bits of the contract, they'll all have to sit in the same room, get it signed off and whatnot. But I would imagine it's done and dusted. And as you know, I've been quite relaxed about this the whole time. But there's a couple of things that I found were quite telling. One of them was the rumoured transfer budget that Moyes might get. And I'd be delighted if the rumours are true, by the way. I'll be delighted. Moyes would be delighted. The only people who wouldn't be delighted are probably Golden Sullivan, who'll have to fork out and put their hands in their pockets again. But I think we'd all be delighted if he got the rumoured 85 million transfer budget. I can't imagine it is, but we'll discuss that in a minute. And the other thing is David Moyes' comments on the official site. I was going to say to the fans, not really a plea to the fans, but it's more... it was more an appeal that he should be afforded some time. Will the fans allow him some time to build? And I thought that was quite interesting and quite telling anyway, because I do think the landscape has shifted somewhat for David Moyes. But I do believe the first part of that is in David Moyes' hands, because as I've said from day one, when David Moyes was invited back to West Ham by David Sullivan, who'd obviously got rid of him in the first place, there was a certain amount of, I think, humble pie having to be eaten by David Sullivan to say, look, I shouldn't have let you go the first time. Will you please come back and play for us, come back and manage us? And I think it took a certain element of a good character from David Moyes, as I've mentioned before, to turn around and say, OK, yeah, I'll do that. Fair enough, I accept that. I'll come back and I'll finish the job that I wanted to do in the first place. There's a lot of us who probably would have said, no, thank you very much. You know, you let me down the first time, I'm not working with you again. So I think fair play for both of them to put their differences behind them and get the deal done. And clearly, we are dealing with a manager here who is one of the best managers in the Premier League at the moment. But I do feel that at that time, David Moyes was rumoured to be getting the Everton job, which went to Carlo Ancelotti. And there weren't a lot of options for him, really. So there weren't a lot of options for West Ham either. I don't think there were many people interested in the West Ham job. So it was a case of, well, he needed us and we needed him. And the dynamics of the relationship were maybe a little bit like that. Now it's very much changed. I think David Moyes could go and get at least 10 of the jobs in the Premier League quite easily. His stock has risen. He's repaired his reputation. I think he's back up to the level. His reputation is back up to the level it was when he left Everton. So he's in a strong position to sort of demand what he wants now. And I think that's just good news for everybody, because I don't think he's a prima donna. I don't think he's going to demand anything unreasonable. I think he will work within the financial constraints of the financial landscape post-COVID, certainly. And I also think it's good because, look, Sullivan would have been burnt, had his fingers burnt, by sanctioning the deals for Felipe Anderson and Sebastian Haller being a case in point. You know, the money was wasted. He backed the manager. It didn't work out. And he probably thought at that point, well, I'm never doing that again. But I'd like to feel that David Moyes has probably within that time proven himself to say, look, Mr. Chairman, you can trust me with the funds. And I'd imagine he's done that. And I would imagine, you know, both Gold and Sullivan probably look at Moyes now and think, OK, we probably trust you to spend our money and to spend West Ham's money very wisely. And so I think that's a good thing. And I think with that, for so long, Sullivan has wanted to be in control of everything. You know, he wanted to be director of football. He wanted to just have his hands in everything. And I think, you know, it's going to be difficult for him to relinquish power. But I think this is why it's important that Moyes is in a position of strength, because Moyes can stipulate that he wants control. He wants to do the coaching system. He wants to have control of transfers. He wants to help with the planning of the fitness coaches, the medical staff, all that sort of thing. And very much almost run West Ham in the mould of an older manager. You don't see it so much now. You've got the head coach, you've got director of football, all that sort of thing. I think Moyes wants to almost be in charge of everything. So I feel he's built up, number one, he's probably built up that level of trust with the owners. The owners can say, OK, we'll let you do that. And number two, he's now in a more powerful position than he was at the start, whereby he can say, well, almost the owners have to let him do it, because we don't want to lose David Moyes at all. No way, no way. Which brings me to his comments before we get on to the amount of money for him to spend. This is what he said. Sorry, I said the official website. It wasn't. It's for the Independent. He did an interview in Independent. He said, if I was a West Ham supporter and David Moyes had come in and saved us from relegation once, come in and saved us from relegation twice, and in his first full season qualified for Europe, I'd be hoping you'd give him a bit of breathing space. Right, I don't blame him for making the point there, by the way. I'll go back to that in a second. He said, even at Everton, I couldn't get them into Europe in the first year, so it's been a huge step. I would hope West Ham supporters are going to say, we're going to give him an opportunity to build on it. What he's saying there, that's a plea to say, don't get on my back. Let me... Give me a chance. I understand why he's done that, although I do think the dynamics are different now, because he will be haunted by his first stint in charge, where he saved us from relegation, and I think as a fan base we weren't particularly happy with what we'd seen. And I think that's obviously why Sullivan replaced him. I do believe that. I don't buy into the narrative that Sullivan then went on to say, "Is I got Pellegrini because you asked me to." Because look, we've got all our stuff archived. Pellegrini, when this was first suggested that Moyes would go, and there was a list of candidates, Pellegrini was not near the top. The fans were not asking for Pellegrini. Okay, but I think it's fair to say there was a large opinion that we probably didn't want David Moyes. I think that's what David Moyes is saying there. But Moyes needs to realise it's very, very different. He has earned by a massive margin the trust of West Ham fans. Look, we get comments on these videos every day. I can't remember the last time I read a comment. I actually, no, to be fair, unless it's about Ben Rama, but I do think that's a slightly different dynamic. And no one's ever saying that David Moyes should leave because of Ben Rama. There's always a couple of comments, Ben Rama should leave because David Moyes. But nobody says David Moyes shouldn't be manager of West Ham. We could get someone better. I mean, I think by and large, people do appreciate what he's done. So I don't think he needs to make the plea. He said, am I going to push the team more? Yes, but we've taken an almighty step. Quite often you have to take a step back, basically talking about Everton. There's so much room for growth at West Ham. Absolutely. And it's like he says, if I was a West Ham supporter and West Ham and David Moyes saved us from relegation once, saved us from relegation twice, and his first full season qualified for Europe, I'd give him a bit of breathing space. That's what he's asked. That's what he's saying. He's saying, please don't get on my back like last time. But we won't. And he's deserved that, and he's earned that. And when I look at it, he could leave now. I mean, realistically, I guess he's out of contract. There'll be a severance deal there. I think if we finish 13th, there was an automatic 12-month extension. But he's not going to. I get the impression with Moyes that he went to Man United and, all right, he got his fingers burnt. He then went over to Spain, didn't really work out. Sunderland, fingers burnt again. And you almost get the impression he wants to do another Everton. He keeps on mentioning Everton. And that's what he wants. He wants to build something. And he's got his eyes on West Ham. His eyes are on West Ham. He's looking at this thinking, this is a long-term job for me. And I think it's absolutely marvellous. I'm absolutely delighted with the job he's done. And all the fans are. And we're all looking forward to next season. Well, look, you're never going to go and watch a game and every week the manager picks the 11 that you'd pick, makes all the substitutions that you would make. But what a job he's done. I mean, this is our biggest points haul in Premier League. It is in Premier League history, isn't it? But he's done a magnificent job. Really, really chuffed. And my point about the money and about the transfer budget of 85 million, I don't think it is, but I'd be amazed if it was. Fantastic. But he has earned the trust. He has earned the trust, and he has earned the right, if you like, to spend that money how he sees fit. And I said it yesterday in yesterday's video, I'm absolutely certain that whatever, however he spends that money, he'll do it wisely. Do I now expect every transfer to come off? No, I don't. I don't. Nobody. Can't think there's any manager that's done that. Every manager will make mistakes. But I think by and large, who we get in is going to work out. The key for West Ham. I mean, look at Soufal. We'll have a chat about him tomorrow because he might well be signing a new contract himself. Look at Soufal. It worked out. If it didn't work out, that was okay as well because it was only 5 million. Look at Balbuena. Balbuena cost 3.5 million. He's about to leave on a free. Well, that's okay. He wasn't on massive wages. He's been a good servant. We've had our £3.5 million worth out of him. Dawson doesn't work out. So on and so forth. But it has. The key, and this is the really big one. Even if we split it down the middle, if we say it's not 85 million, it's not 50 million, let's say he's got 60 million to spend. The key is how if he wants to bring in 2 players with that, the key is how you spend the 30 million. And that's what we've been doing badly up to now. And that's really the one he's got to get right. And for that reason, I don't blame him. I suggested I don't blame him for taking his time and not being rushed into it. But what I would say now is he can't, well, he can take his time, but we have to have them before the start of next season because the squad was thin anyway, and we've got European football. We've got a lot of additional fixtures now and a lot to look forward to. So the squad needs improving. The squad needs padding out as well. It's not just padding out. You know, look, there's been a big bench this season and the bench has more or less been filled. Sometimes 2 goalkeepers, granted. But that's because there weren't enough players that David Moyes trusted. And this really is the point. For it to work for us, we need that bench to be full of players that David Moyes is quite happy to bring on. Because that's my player. Or, well, it doesn't have to be his player. He didn't sign Mikel Antonio, but clearly you trust him. Didn't sign Ogbonna, but clearly you trust him. You know the point I'm making. And this is really what we need. And I'm very, very confident it will happen. So I'm delighted about this new contract. I'm delighted that the board seem to be going an additional year over what they would like to do. It's almost like they made this rule because they were stung by, I guess, by the Pellegrini compensation. I don't pretend to know. I don't know anything about it. I don't know. I mean, it was rumoured at the time that we were going to have to pay him off 8 to 10 million. I would imagine we didn't, but I don't know anything about it. I would be surprised if there wasn't a severance package arranged and organised. But you can understand how being once bitten, twice shy on that, and they've given a manager a big contract, how they would sort of almost make some rules for themselves so it didn't happen again. However, as myself and G always say, you know, you are allowed to change your mind when you get new information, and I think David Moyes has now proven himself, and I might say, actually, let's break our own rules, our self-imposed rules, and let's give him a longer contract. So we need to get this guy tied down. But as I say, I'm not worried about it. I look forward to him signing a new contract. I thought it might be announced on the last day, for the last game. No problem at all. But he needs to get it done because I thought about it when someone was mentioning Harry Kane the other day and about a new manager coming in and about Tottenham. Well, any new manager coming in Tottenham, the first thing they're going to want to ask is, well, is Harry Kane going to be there? Because that's going to be a big factor of whether you take that job or not, because he's obviously one of the best strikers in the world. Your job becomes a lot harder if you don't have Harry Kane and you've got some money, which really probably not going to be enough to replace him and rebuild the team. But it's the same for anyone signing for us. Their first question is going to be, well, is David Moyes in charge next season? And you're going to want to say yes. So I think it's important that not only signs a deal, he signs it quick and then he can get on with his job. It's going to be crucial that as he signs his contract, and maybe this is what takes the time, that all the coaches sign theirs as well. I do not want to see Nolan leave. I do not want to see any of them. Piercy, Irvine, Paul Nevin, they've got to stay. They've all got to stay. It's crucially important. But new contract for David Moyes? Yes, please. Let's get it signed.